The time of the bug has come. Sardakk Norr are known as a primitive, savage, low-tech faction. Norr's reputation precedes them, and they are often granted the luxurious title of worst faction in the game. Now, this is subjective, but critics of Norr definitely have some cogent points, which I will elaborate on later. I'm a commodities half full kind of guy, so I always see the positive aspects of a faction first. I actually enjoy playing with the Sardakk Norr, and I view them as a test of one's skill and mastery of the game. Here is the definitive guide to playing and winning with the Sardakk Norr. Let's start by taking a gander at their faction abilities. This one is abstruse and labyrinthian as they come. Just kidding. Norr's first and only faction ability is Unrelenting. It reads, apply +1 to the result of each of your unit's combat rolls. The easiest way to determine how significant this ability is through battle simulations. So in this first simulation, we have 3 dreadnoughts against 3 dreadnoughts, completely even. The only difference is that the red side has Norr's +1 to their rolls. As you can see, those little +1s can add up. The Norr player won 57, lost 28, and tied 15. In the second simulation, I used different fleet compositions. Both sides had 2 cruisers, 1 destroyer, 1 carrier, and 4 fighters. Norr won 72, lost 25, and tied 3. It's evident that Norr's statistical advantage is greater with more numerous fleets, so you should build lots of lighter ships and fighters rather than fewer big ships. Let's take a look at Norr's leaders. First is their agent Taro, whose ability reads, at the end of a player's tactical action, you may exhaust this card. If you do, that player may place 2 infantry from their reinforcements on a planet they control in the active system. This ability not only supports your war efforts, but also helps you recover from losses and build momentum, making it a useful tool for maintaining an offensive edge. Additionally, it synergizes with their Valkyrie particle weave faction tech if you choose to research it, as well as their mech, both of which I'll cover in more detail shortly. Next is their commander, Gom Sekkus, who is unlocked when you control 5 planets in non-home systems. His ability reads, during the commit ground forces step, you may commit up to 1 ground force from each planet in the active system and each planet in adjacent systems that do not contain one of your command tokens. This commander holds a special place in my heart. Quick rules clarification for anyone wondering. Yes, this means you can take planets without needing ships or capacity. It's awesome how Norr's commander really makes him feel like a primitive but formidable force of nature. If your opponent leaves any planet undefended or lightly defended, you can easily strike with your infantry or ideally your mechs. Finally, we have their hero, unlocked by having 3 scored objectives. Cheval Harbinger. Teklar Conditioning. After you move ships into the active system, you may skip directly to the commit ground forces step. If you do, after you commit ground forces to land on planets, purge this card and return each of your ships in the active system to your reinforcements. So you can basically skip the space combat and go straight to the planets you want to take. But you do lose all the ships you brought. Load up a couple carriers with mechs and infantry and send them in. If you manage to do this to an opponent's home system, well then even better. Overall, this ability can help with some of the tougher public objectives or secret objectives, but its usefulness is limited and highly situational. While it does work decently with its other abilities, it's not exceptional, so I'd consider it a slightly above average hero at best. Sardakk Norr's mech, Valkyrie exoskeleton, is quite good. It has the following abilities. After this unit uses its sustained damage ability during ground combat, it produces 1 hit against your opponent's ground forces on this planet. It also has sustained damage. This can stack with their Valkyrie particle weave tech, and is just consistently good in general. Considering how ground combat centric their abilities are, this is exactly the mech you would want to have. It hitting on 5 because of their Unrelenting ability is just a cherry on top. Moving on, Norr have 2 faction techs, their Valkyrie Particle Weave, which is a red with 2 prereqs, and their unique Dreadnought Extrotrireme 1, which of course upgrades to Extrotrireme 2. Valkyrie Particle Weave reads, after making combat rolls during a round of ground combat, if your opponent produced 1 or more hits, you produce 1 additional hit. This tech is strong defensively and works perfectly in tandem with their mech. Extrotrireme 1 costs 4, hits on 5 or 4 with Norr's ability, has 1 movement and 1 capacity. It has sustained damage and rolls bombardment 4 times 2. Then, with the upgrade, the movement is bumped up to 2 and it gains the following abilities. This unit cannot be destroyed by direct hit action cards. And after a round of space combat, you may destroy this unit to destroy up to 2 ships in the system. While I don't think Dreadnoughts are the unit Norr should focus on, this is a threatening, deadly unit, and I wouldn't say otherwise. After all, the Norr player is the one who gets to choose which 2 ships get destroyed. This unit is a perfect counter to the War Sun or an opponent's flagship. I'm conflicted about this one. I don't like the idea of building a Dreadnought for 4 resources just to blow it up. The threat of blowing it up and taking 2 ships with it carries more weight than actually going through with it. Now onto their faction promissory note, Teklar Legion, which reads, at the start of an invasion combat, apply +1 to the result of each of your unit's combat rolls during this combat. If your opponent is the Norr player, apply -1 to the result of each of his unit's combat rolls during this combat. Then return this card to the Norr player, so you give another player a +1 boost during ground combat. There's not really much to say about this one. It's not super valuable. Give it out to a player on the other side of the board, or just never give it out. Sardakk Norr have a powerful flagship called Camoran Norr, which costs 8, hits on 6x2, which is really 5x2, moves 1, and has a capacity of 3. It has sustained damage and a second ability that reads, apply +1 to the result of each of your other ship's combat rolls in this system. So all your ships besides your flagship in the system gain an additional +1 to all their combat rolls. So if you had a War Sun in the system, it would hit on everything. But the smarter move is to build fighters, cruisers, and carriers, with perhaps a Dreadnought or 2 if you're hell-bent on building Dreadnoughts. If you get those Fighter 2s researched, they can hit on 6s with the help of your flagship, making them extremely lethal. This is a top-notch flagship for both offense and defense, and chances are, if you're playing Sardakk Norr, you'll be doing a lot of both. I have some good things to say about Norr's start. Their home system has 2 planets, Trenlock, a 1-0, and Quinara, a 3-1. This is acceptable, but nothing too impressive. Their starting fleet consists of 2 carriers, 1 cruiser, 5 infantry, 1 space dock, and 1 PDS. A perfect expansion fleet equipped with 5 infantry, so Norr at least has that going for them. I'm never going to complain about a 2 carrier starting fleet though. You're going to want to expand rapidly and unlock your commander, which your starting fleet is well suited for accomplishing. This is a segment in the video where I discuss faction starting techs. However, Sardakk Norr are lacking in that regard. They are the only faction in the game to not start out with any technology. Being an optimist to the end, I choose to look at it as you having the unique advantage of being free to choose the exact tech path that you want. But yes, objectively speaking, this is the weakest aspect of their start. They have 3 commodities, which is nice. I would have figured they would have 2, but I guess these Luddite insects are more diplomatic than they look. Alright, now let's discuss Norr's first round general strategy and objectives. You need to be married to the Warfare strategy card. Expand early, expand often, and don't stop. You need to go to war. If you don't, you're just playing a near vanilla faction. Norr's advantages are only actualized when you're rolling the dice, so do so as much as you can. The law of large numbers tells us that the more you repeat something, the more likely your results will reflect the true probability. So Norr's statistical advantage in rolling materializes the more combats you have. That being said, your commander lets you expand in a low-risk fashion, so your first goal should be to unlock your commander. With this faction, there's no room for wasted moves. Every decision has to count. Every action has to matter. One misstep and the game slips away. You have to do everything right if you want to win. You'll have to take the tech strategy card sooner or later to catch up on tech. The strategy cards you take need to be dependent on the public objectives that you want to score. You cannot afford to focus on anything else. This goes for any faction in TI4, but other factions can get away with prioritizing other short-term goals. Use Norr's metagame infamy to your advantage. Players will be slightly more likely to trade with you since they view you as less of a threat. Be gregarious and flexible when it comes to trade and diplomacy. Only attack one player at once so you aren't hated at the table, especially if that person is in first or has the best position on the board, because then other players may be glad you attacked them. Sardakk Norr are an average Mecatol Rex faction. They have strong defensive abilities in ground combat, so if you can take the planet and reinforce it with plenty of infantry, you'll be in good shape. Just make sure you don't spread too thin. Don't be too overconfident with your ground forces, because they can still be bombarded to hell. If you do take Mecatol, try to get a PDS down quickly. forcing your opponent to go blow for blow with you on the ground. Norr are well suited for scoring the following objectives: expand borders, engineer a marvel, push boundaries, populate the outer rim, and subdue the galaxy. Sardakk Norr's tech path. Where do we start? First of all, I am not going to recommend researching the Valkyrie particle weave tech unless you luck out with tech skips. Here is the exact tech path I would follow: Dark Energy Tap, Gravity Drive, Carrier 2, Neural Motivator, Fighter 2, and Fleet Logistics. Dark Energy Tap lets you pick up Frontier tokens, which may give you some RNG benefits, which are much needed. Same goes for Neural Motivator, more or less. Carrier 2 has the obvious application of carrying many fighters and allowing you to move your mechs and infantry around the map. Fighter 2 is the best unit to capitalize on Norr's Unrelenting and Flagship abilities, and Fleet Logistics is just an ideal tech for scoring victory points. Some might be surprised that I'm shunning the Red path and their faction techs. Both faction techs are good on paper, but they pull you in two different directions. Tripling down on ground combat won't win you games, and blowing up your own plastic won't win you games either. I really like the Extra Tyrant 2 unit, but I just can't justify researching it for any reason other than my own personal enjoyment. In conclusion, the Sardakk Norr aren't as bad as everyone says. I think they have some hidden potential, but maybe I'm just biased because I love picking low-tier factions and making them work. Their shipless planet conquests are idiosyncratic, flat-out epic, and make them stand out for good reason. Their savagery and warmongering isn't a bug, it's a feature. So give Sardakk Norr a chance next time you play Twilight Imperium 4. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.